Hey everyone, this is Rory, your candidate for Thurston County Commissioner District 1. Today, we are going to be talking about tribal inclusion and ensuring that we are evaluating and having a thorough discussion about how we can encourage and amplify diversity and equity in local governments in terms of accountability and best practices involving tribal communities and tribal leaders. So today, my guest is going to be Glenda Breiler, who is a candidate for LD22, is also a member of the Colville Confederated Tribes with family ties to the Chehalis tribes. She's has lifelong dedication to higher education and social work within the Indigenous communities. And so I'm going to turn it over to Glenda really quick to give an introduction of herself that illustrates some of her educational background and some of the work that she's done.
Thank you, Rory. Hi, everyone. My name is Glenda Breiler. And in my language, it's White Haskell Hall, Isquis Glenda Breiler. Tali Hastapanat Slahal. I'm really thankful to be in this moment with you right now, listeners and Rory and team. And yeah, I'm a member of the Colville Confederated Tribes, Okanogan Band. And I grew up in Omak, Washington. I've been living over on this side of the state for half of my life, but I've been connected to this community through my family, who is Chehalis and Colville, and been connected to this community through tribal canoe journeys. And I traveled with the Medicine Creek Treaty Tribes, which is the land that we're on here in the LD22, where I'm running for state of representatives. And let's see, and so the Medicine Creek Treaty Tribes, to give tribute, are Squaxin, Nisqually, and Puyallup. And this area was traditionally a trading location, which is inclusive of Skokomish and Chehalis, and also Muckleshoot. And so also, let's see, my educational background, I have my bachelor's in human services and my master's in social work. And my master's in social work I received from the University of Washington. My focus was on children, youth, and family systems and Indian child welfare. So I did my practicum at the, it was previously the DSHS, now DCYFS in West Seattle. And I worked at the School of Social Work for the Indigenous Wellness Research Institute for about 6 years, focusing on health and wellness with Indigenous populations, mostly locally, Washington State tribes. And currently, my family moved here. My husband, who is a gooey duck, a greener, graduated from the Evergreen State College, and my son, who is now 2 years old, we moved here when I started working for the Washington Indian Gaming Association. Just a quick fact that Skylar, my son, and my husband, John, have the same birthday, which is June 4th. It's coming right up. So he's almost 2. Anyhow, so I moved here to work for WIGA, the Washington Indian Gaming Association, as the deputy director, where I did a lot of policy analyst work with 26 of the 29 Washington state tribes, and worked in conjunction with local government, with the local legislatures. And so I became deeply ingrained around issues on gaming and tribal issues, scrubbing bills, reporting them to tribal lobbyists, tribal attorneys, tribal leaders. And then now currently I am the director of the Longhouse at the Evergreen State College. It's called Squigwialt, which in Lushootseed, the language of this land, it means house of welcome. And the original visionary behind the Longhouse, her name was Mary Hilaire. She's Lummi. She's now passed. She was such an inspiration to her students that after she passed away in 1982, which in fact is the year I was born, she ended up being such a visionary. Her students in the MPA program, which at the Evergreen State College has the only master's in public administration focused on tribal governance. Her students created a whole thesis around how to get the Longhouse going, and they kept that dream alive. And so in 1995, now it's 25 years. We are 25 years into the Longhouse, so it's the first of its kind in Washington State. I'm the director of that, and sorry to be long-winded, Rory.
No, you're good. I really appreciate that read-in. And Glenda's fantastic sign is back behind her. I love it. The colors are beautiful.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the conversation a little bit. So I guess I would kind of like to get some read-in from you about what we know to be the situation at the state level. So through the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs, which is kind of the agency in charge of following through with the Centennial Accords. The Centennial Accords are codified in Washington state law through RCW 43, Chapter 43 dot 376. And so the Centennial Accords basically provided provisions, guidelines, and instruments and tools for local government, statewide government, to interact and, you know, inform one another and collaborate on changes that we need to make in the law, or how to be more representative and inclusive. It had a kind of a broad-based goal of ensuring that there was good communication and collaboration between the multiple sovereign nations. So in your view, Glenda, how do you feel that state process is going?
Well, so the Centennial Accord I've been a part of for the last few years. So it's where the 29 tribes come in and they're able to reflect on the most vital issues going on within their own sovereign nation. So when you look at tribes, it's like looking at 29 states. So they're sovereign nations, they have their own systems of government. In addition to that, the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs, GOIA, as it's also called, they're located here in the old Capitol Courthouse, and they are just kind of, I would say, like a hub where they put on the Centennial Accord. They also create and implement yearly trainings on government to government relations that you or I or anybody can participate in and really learn about tribal relations and an overview of that, in addition to learning more about the Centennial Accord, as Rory was alluding to. And I see them as a source of, you know, just continuing that focus on tribal liaison work. So yeah, and I guess it's kind of I would say GOIA is a starting place. If you want to start learning about tribal relations, you can go to their website and learn about just which tribes there are, you know, about the Centennial Accord. You can, if you want to locate, say, the chairman of Chehalis, you can go to GOIA and you can look that person up. If you want to look up Chehalis' tribal lobbyist, for example, you can go there and you can look up the lobbyist. So I think it's a great resource page. I would say the Centennial Accord is just a beautiful process that really strengthens and continues our government to government relationship, and where the governor really listens and honors and respects each tribal nation.
I love hearing that. That's exactly my read of it as well. You know, as somebody who's a candidate for county commissioner, you know, one of the big things that I want to see happening in this county is more of that communication, cultural appreciation, and respect being displayed by having more liaison effort going into our local committees and stuff in the county. So at the state level, there's liaisons and representatives for all the different departments at the state level. That is not necessarily the case down here in the county. So we have a variety, I think it's 26 boards that have appointed members from the Board of County Commissioners. And so within those committees and advisory councils, that's where I would like to see a lot more tribal inclusion, seeing that we would have liaisons communicating with all of those various committees and advisory boards, but then additionally having another advisory board that is exclusively tribal affairs, and that tribal board is then communicating directly to the commissioner about issues that are vitally important to the tribes. So we have a lot of public commentary options. So like recently in 2019, they had the comprehensive plan came out, right? And so there was public comment on that plan. I noted that the Squaxin tribe gave public commentary on the comprehensive plan, and so did the Nisqually tribe. And so Nisqually tribe seemed to, in their commentary, seemed that there weren't any concerns, but the Squaxin tribe illustrated that they had 11 concerns, suggestions, and tools going forward that should be implemented within that comprehensive plan. And so without having a really thorough dialogue with tribal communities and sovereign nations and historical owners of the land, then we really don't have an inclusive process that is forefronting the needs of everybody in the community. So I think a lot of people, when they think of Native relations and Indian relations, they're not really considering that, you know, they're not all on a reservation. We've got many Indian members of our community and Indigenous peoples that live in our communities as well outside of the reservation. And so those people should have a voice as well in our county governance, more so than they do now. And it speaks to my core goal of really creating this inclusion and representation. So let's talk a little bit about the regional history here. So you had mentioned that this was a regional trading hub here in the Olympia area. Thurston County, because of its positioning, you know, obviously plays into that role a lot, right here at the base of the Salish Sea. And for those of you who are not aware, the Salish Sea is the Puget Sound. That is the accurate name for the Puget Sound, is the Salish Sea. And so what would you say about, or what would you like people to know about that history here in terms of being a trading hub, and how that might have been affected by the Medicine Creek treaties?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think of this as a trading location, I think of this was where traditionally where, you know, where people traveled by canoe and they would gather in this location, you know, in the area where I live, which is, you know, nearby the San Francisco Street Bakery. This was an area where bears would congregate. And so, you know, interesting fun facts.
Right.
Yeah, and as far as the Medicine Creek Treaty, so the Medicine Creek Treaty was just specifically, I don't remember the year that it was signed, but I would definitely have your listeners look up that history. I was taken by, so I've traveled by canoe on tribal canoe journeys, which happens once a year, every July. I've traveled with Puyallup to Bella Bella, which is all the way almost to Alaska, did 600 nautical miles, spent 2 months with the Medicine Creek Treaty Tribes, which Squaxin, Nisqually, and Puyallup.
Mhm.
And so I traveled alongside Nisqually. I traveled alongside Squaxin. One year I traveled on the paddle to Nisqually, starting out at Lummi, which is nearby Bellingham, and then traveled the Salish Sea to Nisqually. And we traveled by canoe to the area where the Medicine Creek Treaty, where that document was signed. In addition to that, yeah, I mean, they're just here. I've learned a lot about Salish Sea protection and the, you know, fishing rights. Billy Frank Jr. of the Nisqually tribe was just an amazing, influential person of this area. Today actually marks, there's a couple of things that I forgot to mention too. So today is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, which we have one of the highest rates of missing and murdered Indigenous women in these areas in the nation. And in addition to that, today is a day where we can remember Billy Frank Jr., who was a big proponent of fishing rights for Native people and of an advocate for climate justice. And today was actually a day where we remember his passing. And so yeah, I mean, his son, Willie Frank III, is on the Nisqually Tribal Council, has been an amazing tribal leader, and just lives, you know, the legacy of Billy Frank Jr. lives through his son, Willie Frank. And so a couple of other things I wanted to state is, you know, in regards to jobs, Nisqually tribe has, I think, the fourth largest private sector of employer behind Walmart in Thurston County. In Mason County, Squaxin is the largest employer. which is just adjacent to Thurston County. And yeah, so I
Yeah,
just
no,
think
that's
it's a really
perfect.
rich history here, and we're, as Rory said, a lot of the folks don't just live on reservations. A lot of my friends who are Squaxin and Nisqually and Chehalis live here in town. They live in Seattle. They go to Evergreen. They're just, you know, just here, right amongst us.
Yep, I definitely agree. And so that date that was mentioned for the Medicine Creek Treaty is signed in 1854. So yeah, that's been with us for quite a while. And so that treaty is what actually gave us effectively is when the land transference happened for the majority of Thurston County. That is the date where we got that land as part of that treaty. So also, I will throw out just as a quick thing, down in our description below, you'll find all the links that we're talking about. So GOIA is going to be down in those links. There's a link in there for WIGA, which is the Washington, yeah, is the
Indian Gaming Association.
Yes, the gaming association. And so their website is down listed on there. And then there also is maps and overlays with native-land.ca. And it's an interactive overlay map. So there's tons of resources down there below. But going on, so right now it's my understanding that a lot of the state progress that we make in terms of representation is done through effectively lobbyists, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so each tribe has their own lobbyist,
Okay.
and you know, as in that link to Goya, you can find who the lobbyist is for my tribe, which is Mike Moran, a local resident of Olympia, lived here since 1990. Amazing,
Mhm.
amazing man, and in addition to that, tribes also have their own tribal attorneys. So monthly, WIGA, the Washington Indian Gaming Association, meets. They have a governing board. They
Mhm.
meet with 27 now of the 29 tribes. So and they meet to talk about any issues around gaming and tribal issues. So that's a real strong government system within the government. And WIGA also has a PAC.
Mhm.
And so when I was the deputy director, that's how I really got to see people like Rory and myself do their stump speeches and
Right.
work to get endorsed. And that's where I
Right.
saw, Representative Deb Lakanoff when she went through her election process in 2018 and won, and now is our representative. Is it the 30th? Just 40th? Yeah, I'm trying to remember which district. Anyways, she she is the she is she now that Senator McCoy has retired, Senator McCoy was a member of the Washington State Tribes Tulalip tribe. So currently, now that he is retiring, um, there's no voice of Washington State tribes in the legislature as an elected representative or senator. I am the first female Washington State tribal member to run in the LD22. And in addition to that, if elected, I would be the second in state history to be elected, the first being Lois Stratton of the Spokane tribe, which was 35 years ago, but would be able to run parallel to strong women, Native women such as
Right.
Deb Lacana.
Right. And this is something that I advocate for really heavily, that Native peoples and Indigenous people should be running for office to serve their communities, to bring that voice. It's my hope that we see more of that in the future. But I think it starts by inviting people to come into the conversation, right? And by listening, by actually hearing people. So a lot of the times when I sit with Native community members and Indigenous community members, really what my goal is to hear them, to listen to the conversation, because there's so much rich history that I am not aware of. I mean, there's always something new to learn from thousands of years worth of history. But I think the process of encouraging involvement starts by listening. And so that's where I usually try to really make sure that I'm giving deference and space to people who deserve a voice. You know, one of the reasons that I was so passionate about having you here and doing a segment specifically about this issue and these topics, I think is really important. So, you know, kind of moving into best practices, I think with that kind of lead in mind, don't mind the noise behind me. We're, you know, rolling with the Zoom at home. But yeah, no, suggested best practices for local government to connect with tribal leaders. And I think so. I kind of illustrated early on that one of the things that I think would be an excellent approach for best practices would be mirroring the type of processes we have at the state level in the county commissions and committees and boards, the advisory councils and the advisory boards, which again are, they have liaisons at the state levels that are in all of these departments. And the Board of County Commissioners here does the appointments for 26 committees and councils and advisory boards here in Thurston County. So to create these advisory roles or to ensure that they're filled and that there is representation really only takes decisions by the county commissioners. And so what I envision is being that county commissioner that's heavily advocating for making sure that not only do these individual committees and boards have that representation and that voice through appointments as they come available, but that people are informed of the opportunities that are there, right? So right now there's various vacancies and openings on multiple boards in the county right now. All you got to do is go to the county's website and do an application. It's a quick, easy application. And the people who serve in those positions are citizens just like you and I. You know, they're average everyday people that are passionate about their communities and are seeking to represent the communities that they come from and their cultural histories. And so I think what could be done in general is really a heavy focus on that and actively inviting members of underrepresented communities to come into the discussion and participate in the discussion. You know, I think one of the big things that I advocated for early was this idea that we need to incorporate accountability in terms of negotiated rulemaking, whereby people come in and are actually participating in making the rules for these various departments. And I think that that's a great lead into having Indigenous members and community members coming in and doing that. And to whatever extent there is the availability to do that. And so, you know, that's something I think I would be exploring within that first year in office is how do we create a more diverse and inclusive situation here in Thurston where representational needs are met. So that's kind of what I would be doing as a commissioner. And I think, you know, we also have this discussion around having that as a focus. It's not just a benefit to people who are white skinned or dark skinned. It's not just a benefit to members of the Indigenous community and Native communities. It's also a benefit to everyone of every community because it's going to benefit us all that there's more inclusion and diversity. What we know about diversity and equity is that the more diversity and equity we see, the more well-rounded our decisions are. That's just the basic way, the most simplest way to put it is like, if we want to have healthy approaches to governance, we need diversity and equity. Simple as that. So I think with that, is there anything else that you think is vitally important that people here in Thurston need to know about local government or your community's experience, the Native experience here in Thurston?
Yeah, I think, I you know, applaud everything that you said. And you know, when I have spoke with statewide senators and representatives, you know, folks that are working to become elected commissioners, you know, a lot of people do ask me about what are best practices for tribal relations. And, you know, I think just starting with what Rory was talking about, you know, going to GOIA's website, I can, you know, learning about whose land are we on, and learning about the history of the Medicine Creek Treaty and how the lands were ceded, when they were ceded, why they were ceded, and why these reservations exist. And you know, and Rory and I also were talking about how the college here locally, Evergreen State College, has just the highest rate per a four-year institution of Native students and LGBTQ students. So, inclusive work is happening right here locally. And those that are advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion are, in these local systems and promoting those systems as well. And are people like Rory and people who just want to take the time, or do take the time to just learn about the history of the land that we're living on right now, and who came here and who was living here traditionally for thousands of years, and also, in addition to that, learning about maybe an example about ways to get active in the local community, learning about tribal canoe journeys, and how amazing they are. The tribes land here locally. They start from here. It's a beautiful process. Coming into the Longhouse at the Evergreen State College, we have an Indigenous arts campus that is crazy beautiful. In addition, that just learning about the native foods and plant systems of this area, and how rich that is through resources such as grub, and how to harvest those plants and medicines, and wild roots. So
Fantastic.
I just those are a few examples, along with the links that Rory shared. I think those are just really good places to start. And GOIA does have a training that's an intro level training on tribal relations, which is their government to government training that I, highly advise if you're going in to be, if you would like to be a candidate, if you're going to work in local government, and if you're just a member of this community and want to learn more about your tribal nations and the 29 tribes of the Washington state.
Yep. Yeah, I want to echo that, and I uplift it seriously, because your first step as a candidate should be making sure that you have some cultural competency and a desire to learn about other people. And so I think that those are foundational anytime you want to run for office and serve your community. So thank you for uplifting that message for me. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to transition into the next of our a little brief rundown of some of those links and everything, but I wanted to thank you again so much for being with us, Glenda. It means the world to me. I'm really thankful I met you, because we did League of Conservation Voters together that first session, and we had a blast. And so I'm so thankful that I met you, and I really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I look forward to our next candidate training together.
Yep. Coming up in June, from what I understand, if they don't cancel it because of social distancing. I hope not. I'd love to see you in person again soon.
Love you too.
All right. Well, you take care, and I will talk to you again soon.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so with that said, I definitely had already mentioned that we've got a description below the video link. And in that description, you're going to see links for everything that we discussed today, with the exception of maybe Grub, but I'll make sure we get that in there. So you're going to see the link for the Longhouse. You're going to see the link for GOIA, for WIGA. You're going to see the map overlays for native-land.ca. So these are great ways to really benefit from some cultural awareness and cultural competency, really learn what you can do in your community. And I'm so glad that Glenda actually pointed out that we need to educate the populace more about what these various positions can do. And so with that, I'll mention that in my next video, which is coming up on the 9th, we're going to have a county conversation with just me, but I'm going to be explaining all the different ways that you can get involved. I'm going to be explaining what I would be doing as a commissioner, but what the commissioners do in general, what the scope of duty is for a commissioner. Additionally, I'm going to be talking a lot about what you as an individual can do to get involved in local politics and create change in your community. When we're talking about local, state, and national politics, the idea is to create representation that's lacking. And so that's what we're going to be doing in that next video, is having a really thorough discussion about what the ins and outs of the job are, how you can get involved locally, and how you can get involved beyond that. So with that, remember to volunteer or donate on my website to keep these conversations going. That website for you is going to be www.voterory.com. At the top, you'll see the donate and the volunteer buttons. But down below, if you scroll down the page a little bit, you'll see a question box. Fill out that question box if you want some questions answered on the next live stream. We will take and compile all the questions, and we'll throw in as many as we have time for. So Thurston County, thank you. Again, my name is Rory, and I am your candidate for Thurston County Commissioner District 1.